051. Latin.
Ex abundanti cautela.
Translation, out of an abundance of caution. Notes, in law, describes someone taking precautions against a very remote contingency. One might wear a belt in addition to braces ex abundanti cautela. In banking, a loan in which the collateral is more than the loan itself.
注：在法律上，描述某人对非常遥远的突发事件采取预防措施。
One might wear a belt in addition to braces ex abundanti cautela.
在银行业务中，指抵押品多于贷款本身的贷款。
Also the basis for the term an abundance of caution, employed by the former President of the U.S. Barack Obama to explain why the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court John Roberts had to re-administer the presidential oath of office, and again in reference to terrorist threats.
也是美国前总统巴拉克·奥巴马用来解释为什么美国最高法院首席大法官约翰·罗伯茨必须重新主持总统就职宣誓，并再次指向恐怖主义威胁的 an abundance of caution 一词的基础。
052. Latin.
Ex abundantia enim cordis o esse loquitur.
Translation, for out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. Notes, from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 12 line 34, Vulgate, and the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6 line 45, Vulgate. Sometimes rendered without enim, for.
注：出自圣经拉丁通俗译本中马太福音第12章第34行和路加福音第6章第45行。有时以去掉 anim 的形式呈现。
053. Latin.
Ex aequo.
Translation, from the equal. Notes, denoting on equal footing, that is, in a tie. Used for those two, seldom more, participants of a competition who demonstrated identical performance.
注：表示在平等基础上，即平局。用于表示两名，很少用于多名比赛参与者的表现旗鼓相当。
054. Latin.
Ex Africa semper aliquid novi.
Translation, there is always something new coming out of Africa. Notes, Pliny the Elder, Naturalis Historia, Book 8, Unde etiam vulgar Graecii dictum semper aliquid novi Africam et fer, a translation of the Greek.
注：出自老普林尼的自然史第8卷。
Unde etiam vulgare Graece dictum semper aliquid novi Africam ad ferre.
译自希腊语。
055. Latin.
Ex amicitia pax.
Translation, peace from friendship. Notes, often used on internal diplomatic event invitations. A motto sometimes inscribed on flags and mission plaques of diplomatic corps.
注：常用于内部外交活动邀请，有时作为外交使团的旗帜和使团牌匾上的铭文。
056. Latin.
Ex animo.
Translation, from the soul. Notes, sincerely. 057. Latin.
Ex ante.
Translation, from before. Notes, denoting, beforehand, before the event, or, based on prior assumptions, denoting a prediction.
注：表示事前或基于先前的假设，表示预测。
058. Latin.
Ex Astris Scientia.
Translation, from the stars, knowledge. Notes, the motto of the fictional Starfleet Academy of Star Trek. Adapted from Ex Scientia, which in turn derived from Ex Scientia Tridents.
注：星际迷航中虚构的星际舰队学院的校训，改写自
Ex Luna Scientia.
而后者又源自
Ex Scientia Tridents.
059. Latin.
Ex cathedra.
Translation, from the chair. Notes, a phrase applied to the declarations or promulgations of the Catholic Supreme Pontiff, Pope, when, preserved from the possibility of error by the Holy Spirit, see papal infallibility, he solemnly declares or promulgates a dogmatic doctrine on faith or morals as being contained in divine revelation, or at least being intimately connected to divine revelation. Used, by extension, of anyone who is perceived as speaking as though with supreme authority.
注：一个短语适用于天主教教皇的声明或颁布，当他庄严的宣布或颁布被包含在神圣启示中关于信仰或道德的教义时，为了避免圣灵犯错的可能性，见教宗无误论。引申开来，用于指任何被认为拥有最高权威的人。
060. Latin.
Ex cultu robur.
Translation, from culture comes strength. Notes, the motto of Cranleigh School, Surrey, England. 061. Latin.
Ex Deo.
Translation, from God. 062. Latin.
Ex dolo malo.
Translation, from fraud. Notes, from harmful deceit, dolus malus is the Latin legal term denoting fraud. The full legal phrase is ex dolo malo non oritur actio, an action does not arise from fraud. When an action has its origin in fraud or deceit, it cannot be supported. Thus, a court of law will not assist a man who bases his course of action on an immoral or illegal act.
注：来自有害的欺骗 ，dolus malus 是拉丁法律术语，表示欺诈。完整的法律用语是 ex dolo malo non oritur actio， 行为并非源于欺诈。当一项行为源于欺诈或欺骗时，不能得到支持，因此，法院不会协助以不道德的或非法的行为作为依据的人。
063. Latin.
Ex duris gloria.
Translation, from suffering comes glory. Notes, motto of Rafa Cycling Club, see also Rafa, sportswear. 064. Latin.
Ex facie.
Translation, from the face. Notes, idiomatically rendered, on the face of it. A legal term typically used to state that a document's explicit terms are defective absent further investigation.
注：惯用语是表面上。一个法律术语，通常用于说明某项文件的明确条款在没有进一步调查的情况下存在缺陷。
065. Latin.
Ex fide fiducia.
Translation, from faith comes confidence. Notes, motto of St. George's College, Harare and Hartmann House Preparatory School. 066. Latin.
Ex fide fortis.
Translation, from faith comes strength. Notes, motto of Loyola School in New York City, New York, United States. 067. Latin.
Ex glande quercus.
Translation, from the acorn the oak. Notes, motto of the Municipal Borough of Southgate, London, England, United Kingdom. 068. Latin.
Ex gratia.
Translation, from kindness. Notes, more literally, from grace. Refers to someone voluntarily performing an act purely from kindness, as opposed to for personal gain or from being compelled to do it. In law, an ex gratia payment is one made without recognizing any liability or obligation.
注：更确切地说是出于恩典，指纯粹出于善意而自愿采取行动的人，而不是为了个人利益或被迫这样做。在法律上 ，ex gratia payment 是在不承认任何责任或义务的情况下支付的。
069. Latin.
Ex hypothesi.
Translation, from the hypothesis. Notes, denoting by hypothesis.
注：表示通过假设。
070. Latin.
Ex ignorantia ad sapientiam, ex luce ad tenebras.
Translation, from ignorance into wisdom, from light into darkness. Notes, motto of the fictional Miskatonic University in Arkham, Massachusetts, from the Cthulhu mythos.
注：位于马萨诸塞州阿塔姆，虚构的米斯卡塔尼克大学的校训，出自克苏鲁神话。
071. Latin.
Ex infra.
Translation, from below. Notes, recent academic notation denoting from below in this writing. See also ex supra.
注：新进的学术符号表示在这篇文章中从下面。另见 ex supra。
072. Latin.
Ex juvantibus.
Translation, from that which helps. Notes, the medical pitfall, in which making an inference about disease causation from an observed response of the disease to a treatment, substitutes proper diagnosis.
注：医学陷阱，即根据观察到的疾病对治疗的反应来推断疾病的因果关系，取代了正确的诊断。
073. Latin.
Ex lege.
Translation, from the law. 074. Latin.
Ex libris.
Translation, from the books. Notes, precedes a person's name, denoting from the library of the nominate, also a synonym for bookplate.
注：至于人名之前，表示来自所提及之人的图书馆，也是藏书票的同义词。
075. Latin.
Ex luna scientia.
Translation, from the moon, knowledge. Notes, the motto of the Apollo 13 lunar mission, derived from Ex Scientia Tridents, the motto of Jim Lovell's alma mater, the United States Naval Academy.
注：阿波罗13号登月任务的标语源自 Ex Scientia Tridents， 这是吉姆·洛维尔的母校美国海军学院的校训。
076. Latin.
Ex malo bonum.
Translation, good out of evil. Notes, from St. Augustine of Hippo, Sermon 61, in which he contradicts the dictum of Seneca the Younger in Epistulae Moralis ad Lucilium, bonum ex malo non fit, good does not come from evil.
注：出自希波的圣奥古斯丁 Sermon 61，他在其中与小塞内卡在致卢西里乌斯的道德书信中的格言 bonum ex malo non fit， 善不来自恶相矛盾。
077. Latin.
Ex mea sententia.
Translation, in my opinion. 078. Latin.
Ex mero motu.
Translation, out of mere impulse, or of one's own accord. 079. Latin.
Ex nihilo nihil fit.
Translation, nothing comes from nothing. Notes, from Lucretius, and said earlier by Empedocles. Its original meaning is, work is required to succeed, but its modern meaning is a more general, everything has its origins in something, see also causality. It is commonly applied to the conservation laws in philosophy and modern science.
注：出自卢克莱修，恩培多克勒更早前也说过。它的原始含义是成功需要工作，但其现代含义是更笼统的一切都源于某事，另见因果关系。它通常应用于哲学和现代科学中的守恒定律。
Ex nihilo is often used in conjunction with creation, as in creatio ex nihilo, denoting creation out of nothing. It is often used in philosophy and theology in connection with the proposition that God created the universe from nothing.
Ex nihilo 经常与 creation 连用，如在 creatio ex nihilo 中，表示无中生有。它经常用于哲学和神学，与上帝从无到有创造宇宙的命题有关。
080. Latin.
Ex novo.
Translation, anew. Notes, denotes something that has been newly made or made from scratch, see also de novo.
注：表示新制作或从头开始制作的东西，另见 de novo。
081. Latin.
Ex oblivione.
Translation, from oblivion. Notes, the title of a short story by H.P. Lovecraft.
注：霍华德·菲利普斯·洛夫克拉夫特的一篇短篇小说的标题。
082. Latin.
Ex officio.
Translation, from the office. Notes, by virtue or right of office. Often used when someone holds one office by virtue of holding another, for example, the President of France is an ex officio co-prince of Andorra. A common misconception is that all ex officio members of a committee or Congress may not vote, but in some cases they do.
注：凭借美德或任职权，常用于当某人因担任某一职务继而担任另一职务时，例如，法国总统是安道尔的 Ex Officio 联合亲王。一个常见的误解是委员会或国会的所有 Ex Officio 成员都不得投票，但在某些情况下，他们会这样做。
In law, ex officio can also refer to an administrative or judicial office taking action of its own accord. In the case of the latter, the more common term is ex proprio motu or ex meru motu, for example to invalidate a patent or prosecute infringers of copyright.
在法律上 ，ex officio 也可以指行政或司法机关自行采取行动。在后者这种情况下，更常见的术语是 ex proprio motu 或 ex meru motu， 例如使专利无效或起诉侵犯版权者。
083. Latin.
Ex opere operantis.
Translation, from the work of the one working. Notes, a theological phrase contrasted with ex opere operato, referring to the notion that the validity or promised benefit of a sacrament depends on the person administering it.
注：一个语
Ex opere operato.
形成对比的神学短语，指的是这样一种观念，即圣礼的有效性或应许之福取决于执行它的人。
084. Latin.
Ex opere operato.
Translation, from the work worked. Notes, a theological phrase meaning that the act of receiving a sacrament actually confers the promised benefit, such as a baptism actually and literally cleansing one's sins. The Catholic Church affirms that the source of grace is God, not just the actions or disposition of the minister or the recipient of the sacrament.
注：一个神学短语，意思是接受圣礼的行为实际上赐予了应许之福，例如洗礼实际上并从字面上清洗了一个人的罪。天主教会确认恩典源自于上帝，而不仅仅是牧师或圣礼接受者的行为或素质。
085. Latin.
Ex oriente lux.
Translation, light from the east. Notes, originally refers to the sun rising in the east, but alludes to culture coming from the Eastern world. Motto of several institutions.
注：原指东方升起的太阳，但暗指来自东方世界的文化。多家机构的标语。
086. Latin.
Ex oriente pax.
Translation, peace comes from the east, that is, from the Soviet Union. Notes, shown on the logo as used by East Germany's CDU.
注：显示在东德基督教民主联盟使用的标志上。
087. Latin.
Ex parte.
Translation, from a part. Notes, a legal term that means, by one party or for one party. Thus, on behalf of one side or party only.
注：一个法律术语，意思是由一方或为一方，因此仅代表一方。
088. Latin.
Ex pede Herculem.
Translation, from his foot, so Hercules. Notes, from the measure of Hercules' foot you shall know his size, from a part, the whole.
注：从赫拉克勒斯的脚的尺寸，你就会知道它的大小，见微知著。
089. Latin.
Ex post.
Translation, from after. Notes, afterward, after the event. Based on knowledge of the past. Measure of past performance.
注：事后，根据过去的知识，对过去表现的衡量。
090. Latin.
Ex post facto.
Translation, from a thing done afterward. Notes, set of a law with retroactive effect.
注：说的是具有追溯效力的法律。
091. Latin.
Ex professo.
Translation, from one declaring an art or science. Notes, or with due competence. Said of the person who perfectly knows his art or science. Also used to mean, expressly.
注：或具有应有的能力，说的是完全了解他的艺术或科学的人。 也用来表示明确的。
092. Latin.
Ex relatione. Ex relatio.
Translation, arising out of the relation or narration of the relator. Notes, the term is a legal phrase. The legal citation guide called the Blue Book describes ex relation as a procedural phrase and requires using it to abbreviate on the relation of, for the use of, on behalf of, and similar expressions.
注：该术语是一个法律用语，名为 Blue Book 的法律引文指南描述了 ex relatione 作为程序性短语，需要用它来缩写
On the relation of for the use of on behalf of.
等类似的表达方式。
093. Latin.
Ex scientia tridens.
Translation, from knowledge, see power. Notes, the motto of United States Naval Academy refers to knowledge bringing men power over the sea comparable to that of the trident-bearing Greek god Poseidon.
注：美国海军学院的校训，指的是知识所带来的人类力量，可以媲美手持三叉戟的希腊海神波塞冬。
094. Latin.
Ex scientia vera.
Translation, from knowledge, truth. Notes, the motto of the College of Graduate Studies at Middle Tennessee State University.
注：田纳西州中部州立大学研究生院的校训。
095. Latin.
Ex silentio.
Translation, from silence. Notes, in general, the claim at the absence of something demonstrates the proof of a proposition. An argumentum ex silentio, argument from silence, is an argument based on the assumption that someone's silence on a matter suggests, proves, when a logical fallacy, that person's ignorance of the matter or their inability to counterargue validly.
注：一般来说，声称某物不存在本身显示了对某一命题的检验。Argumentum ex silentio 来自沉默的论证，是一种基于假设某人对某件事的沉默指向了当存在逻辑谬误时，即为证明该人对此事的无知，或他们无法有效反驳的假设。
096. Latin.
Ex situ.
Translation, out of position. Notes, opposite of.
In situ.
097. Latin.
Ex solo ad solem.
Translation, from the earth to the sun. Notes, the motto of the University of Central Lancashire, Preston, Lancashire, England. 098. Latin.
Ex supra.
Translation, from above. Notes, recent academic notation for from above in this writing. See also ex infra.
注：新进的学术符号表示在这篇文章中从下面。另见 ex infra。
099. Latin.
Ex tempore.
Translation, from this moment of time. Notes, this instant, right away, or immediately. Also written extempore.
注：这一刻、马上或立即，也写作 extempore。
100. Latin.
Ex turpi causa non oritur actio.
Translation, from a dishonorable cause an action does not arise. Notes, a legal doctrine which states that a claimant will be unable to pursue a cause of action if it arises in connection with his own illegal act. Particularly relevant in the law of contract, tort and trusts.
注：一种法律原则，规定如果诉讼因与索赔人的非法行为有关，则索赔人将无法追究诉讼因由，尤其适用于合同法、侵权法和信托法。